One of my clients seems to have cured herself of breast cancer. It looks as if she has had what a lot of people would call a spontaneous remission of cancer. A better term is probably a radical remission. This is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. In this episode, I want to reflect a little bit about the journey with this particular client, what may have happened, and I want to talk a little bit about mind-body interactions, remissions from disease, science, ethics, and confirmation bias. So first of all, the whole premise of this. This particular client is a person I know quite well, and I have helped her in the past with another issue. And she called me a while ago and said that she had developed breast cancer. She had discovered a lump in her breast that had grown, was quite big, and gone through medical testing, which confirmed that she had a breast cancer, a pretty aggressive one, and that she was scheduled for about 6 months of chemotherapy and then surgery. Now, the reason she called me is she had a suspicion that the occurrence of cancer might have something to do with what was going on with her internally. Now, if you have a strict materialistic view or a very dualistic mind-body split worldview that a lot of people have, where some things are physical and other things are psychological, and that a physical disease like cancer has nothing to do with your internal life, then ideas such as these seem preposterous. But if you have a worldview, which is a more accurate one, that says that what we call mind and body is an integrated system where all sorts of, everything kind of affects everything, and that this mind-body system that we have is intimately connected to other mind-body systems, through culture and social factors, then thinking in those directions doesn't seem that far-fetched. So she wondered, could we explore? And I said yes. And I want to make very sure from the get-go that there was no money involved. So I didn't charge her any money for this particular work. I did not make any cause and effect claims like this method or working with me will cure your cancer. There was no claim like that, no promises, and at no point have I interfered with her medical treatment, nor given her medical advice. So the whole frame here was, let's explore the psychological, emotional, relational doorway, so to speak, and see what might happen if we do that. Now, at the time that I saw her, she had had one round of chemotherapy, and she had become very sick from that one round of chemotherapy, and even ended up in isolation. So she also wondered if perhaps I could help her through hypnosis and suggestion to deal better with the treatment. So what we did is, and I should say that this particular client is very much in tune with her body. She has great felt sense. She has great access to her inner life and her internal experience. She can reflect on it. She's a very good hypnotic subject, meaning she's good at getting absorbed into suggested ideas and these sorts of stuff. So what we did is I had her, first I asked her, I said, look, you're 40 years old. Um, why now? You could have gotten sick 5 years ago or 5 years into the future. Why now? And I just sat back and I got completely silent. This is often a useful question to ask clients. And initially, I got answers that seemed very intellectual, but they didn't seem to be connected to anything. So I had her focus in. I offered a lot of suggestions for connecting with her inner experience and focusing and feeling and opening up. And I had her go into her breast area and feel into the sensations and connect with them while she connected with my voice. And when I saw that she responded well to this, I started offering very open-ended suggestions that there might be something there to explore. That if she followed these sensations and allowed them to do whatever they wanted to do, then perhaps there would be some set of memories or ideas or impressions that might emerge. And stuff started coming up. And a lot of it surprised her quite a bit. Now, this is not a claim of repressed memories or repressed material. All the kind of cognitions and emotions that occurred were known to her, but she was kind of surprised by what emerged and the intensity of it. And through guiding her, I was able to help her to resolve some things and to disidentify with some quite limiting self-deficiency stories about who she was and what she deserved. You know, if you, there are some people who study remission scientifically. One person is Jeffrey Rediger. He's written a book called Cured, based upon studying over 1,000 cases of remissions. One of the things that he points out is that if you look at these remissions from serious disease, quite often there's a radical shift in identity, a radical shift in people's relationship to themselves and who they take themselves to be. And this is what happened with this particular client. It was quite significant, strong shifts. And after the session, she felt warm. When she came in, she felt cold. After the session, she felt warm. She was no longer depressed or low. She felt that life was flowing through her again. So it was very clear that without bothering you with the content or revealing personal information about the client, it was very apparent to both of us that some radical shift had happened. I also and then she took a few days off, and when she came back, she said, you know what, my breast feels different. And we had another session, once again connecting, exploring, going into the sensations. Other stuff appeared that she was able to get perspective on and disidentify with, and get closure on certain, role confusions and stuff like that seemed very relevant to her health. And same thing happened again. And I also offered her imagery and suggestions for dealing better with chemotherapy as she had requested. But the breast already felt quite different. And then she had one more then she had one more session of chemotherapy. Now, a few weeks later, because she needed some time to recover, a few weeks later, she called me, ecstatic, on the phone, and said, I can't find anything anymore. She was, using her hands to grab her breasts and to feel into the area where she used to have a pretty big tumor. She could not find anything. And she had her mother do the same thing, and she couldn't find anything. And then, and here's the interesting part. She went back to her physician, and the physician and the nurse did the same type of stuff, and they were taken back. They were shocked and surprised and said, this doesn't happen, this quickly. They couldn't find anything either, and were very puzzled as to what might be going on. But when she requested new medical tests to see if there was anything there, they said no. They said we don't do that. And they still insisted that she do the remainder of the chemotherapy and the surgery. They very specifically told her that it doesn't matter if we can't find anything. It has no bearing on, we follow procedure. We're going to do this no matter what. Which is kind of interesting. And what's also very interesting is, of course, the lack of curiosity, because some people who might listen to this little rant of mine might be skeptical and say, look, if this was possible, people would be doing it, doctors would be writing about it. But I'm reluctant to talk about this in cases like this, because you can get a lot of blowback, because you're challenging deep assumptions in people's worldview, and when you do that, people often react funnily. And my client is very reluctant to really tell people about the stuff she's done on herself and the work she's done with me, because she can sense when she speaks to people that very few people are open to that. They get defensive, they get weird. And she said the same thing about the nurse and the physician, the couple of physicians who's explored this, that by talking to them, they have no curiosity and no openness whatsoever about what might have happened. So she has a very strong sense not to tell them about that. If you read Jeffrey Rediger, the book Cured, or if you read Kelly Turner, who also has done a lot of research into spontaneous remissions, who's written the book Radical Hope and Radical Remission, they both write that when they meet patients who have had spontaneous remissions from cancer and other diseases, that the patients say that you are the first physician that has shown any curiosity whatsoever as to what I have done or what's gone on internally in my inner life. So there's something about confirmation bias, because, as I said, a lot of people are very skeptical, towards a report like this, and of course you should be. There's this idea that physicians would love to hear about this, and if these things happen, they would be on CNN and the media would write about it and scientific conferences would. But the reality is, most patients will probably not tell their doctors about something like this, and the doctors, most of them have a worldview where being curious about stuff like this does not fit their worldview at all. Doesn't mean that they're evil or don't want the best for their patients, but these sorts of shifts have no place in a strict materialistic or a strict the body as a machine metaphor. So as a result of that, those doctors might, you know, retire in 20 years and go, no, I never heard about that, or I never saw that, so it doesn't exist. And who knows how many times it may have happened throughout their careers, but they haven't heard it because they didn't ask, and or the client sensed, probably accurately, that starting to talk about emotions or inner life or what they did would not go over well at all. So the third session, which I had just the other day with this particular client, was about how do I deal with my environment. So she has some supporters who know about this and who have a worldview where these things are, worth considering. But as she said, she senses that most of the people in her life are not at all open to the idea that you can use mind-body interventions to change, a tumor. At best, it might be, I'm going to do some psychological work to help me cope better with the illness or the depression. So we kind of brainstormed various ways of protecting her own boundaries and answering people in such a way that she could maintain her own integrity while simultaneously, being honest and not having to defend herself against other people's wrath and disdain and cynicism as a result of this stuff not being possible in their worldview. Like the physicians immediately said, oh, haven't seen this. This is completely unusual. This doesn't happen after 2 rounds of chemotherapy. You must be, an exceptional responder to chemotherapy. And of course, they may be right, I can't claim any cause and effect relationship. I can't sit here and say that what we did together is the factor that made that happen. It may be that this would have happened anyways. It may be that she's an exceptional responder to chemotherapy. I doubt it, but it's possible. But those were the only interpretations available in the nurses, the healthcare personnel, and the physicians who she has spoken to. And of course, according to skeptics, that's science. But I would argue that what she and I have done together is in line with the scientific, the values that drive the scientific process. The quest for truth, the curiosity, the willingness to test assumptions. So we worked a little bit on how to maintain her boundaries, how to talk about what has happened to her in a way that doesn't alienate people, who to tell things to, who not to tell things to. And we also worked a little bit on, as she said, look, I'm getting so much benefit from the cancer in a sense that people are so nice to me and people provide things for me and they drive me around and they do everything and they're loving and well, I haven't had that to that extent before. And so beginning to re-own what she's getting from the cancer from other people in other ways, taking care of herself better, prioritizing herself better, setting boundaries, connecting, these sorts of things. Um, so the compromise that she kind of landed on, and this is nothing that I have influenced. I've just asked questions, and but what she's going to do is she's going to do a third round of chemo, just because they're insisting, and then demand medical tests before she does anything else, which may be a way of kind of meeting them halfway, and then depending upon what the tests show, deciding what to do. But at least something dramatic has happened, because she had a solid tumor that she could feel, and now neither she nor the doctors nor the nurses can feel or find anything. So these things are possible. I've seen them before. They're very unusual, but they are possible, at least sometimes, for some people. In terms of ethics, when I worked with her, there was no money involved. There was no hard claims. Um, there's no interference with her medical treatment, one way or the other. There's probably many ways, many factors going into this, but I also think it's something of a tragedy that what you could call psychological factors and emotional factors and relationship factors and cultural factors, that these factors are often not at all explored. We're seriously missing out. So I hope you found this interesting, thought-provoking. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you're free to leave them wherever you find the video. Um, yeah, as always, thanks for listening.